It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it's episode 368. Welcome to the week of 10 March 2024. We've got Dim Bones, Leather, QNAP, CISA, Microsoft, PyPI, France, AirBnB, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
All right, I'm Doug White, and it's the Security Weekly News. It's spring break week here in Rhode Island. I'm actually wearing a Speedo under the desk, but I won't stand up. Well, maybe. I might. You never know what I might actually do. All right. Well, Leather, which has a lot of meanings, but in this case, Leather is a crypto app. And the developers of Leather have been issuing a bunch of warnings that there's a fake app on Apple App Store, which is a crypto wallet drainer that will steal all your money. So if you don't know, a wallet drainer app is essentially a script that it looks like an app. You install it as an app. It runs as an app. But what it's really doing is it's a script. And it may do just about anything because you installed it and you usually are root admin on your own device. So it's got pretty much full privilege to everything. And, you know, that little box pops up and says, are you okay with me accessing everything on your entire device? Like, yeah, sure. Why not? Okay. But this particular one goes after your passphrases, your wallet information, pretty much anything it can grab. And then once it has all that, it just transfers that somewhere else and then transfers all the digital assets out of your wallet. And when you log back in, guess what? You have no money. The wallet drainer business is apparently now so profitable that attackers have actually created crypto phishing as a services so that anyone can get in on the illegal action for a fee. It's like, you know, like all this other stuff, like the fishing industry. It's just become like corporatized. They probably have HR and they tell you, you know, when you're scamming customers, always try to use the right name for the customer and avoid pronoun, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, from HR. But basically, the company that made Leather said that the Leather wallet app on the iOS store is a fake because they don't actually make a product for iOS yet. I mean, that was what they put out. So they advised, and I also advised this, if you've downloaded this fake app, you need to transfer all your funds out of that wallet, like right now. Like, don't wait, because otherwise it's going to be gone. And now, the app was still on Apple Store yesterday, but I went and checked this morning, and I could not find it. So it seems like after this article was published, maybe Apple went, oh, maybe we should get rid of that. So it does seem to be gone now. But users have reported a lot of action on this in the past few days. So you should definitely check your Leather app if you're using that crypto app and make sure you don't have any money in it if you're on an iPhone. The malicious app was published by someone named Lital Kamru. Yeah, that doesn't sound suspicious at all. But they had the real logo and everything on it, so it looked like the app. It felt like the app, you know. So what? So if you have it and they haven't cleaned you out yet, you might want to move all that somewhere safe. Like, I'll send you my bank account information. I'll hold it for you. I promise. I won't spend it on cigars and stuff. Yeah, no way. Well, QNAP is back with all new vulnerabilities in their NAS product, which includes QTS, QUT Cloud, and My QNAP Cloud. So, you know, QNAP is based in Taiwan, and they make network-attached storage devices, or NAS. And they disclosed 3 new vulnerabilities, which can lead to an authentication bypass, a command injection, or an SQL injection, or all of the above, or who knows what else. Two of the vulnerabilities, though, do require authentication on the target system, which you probably didn't use the same password on that you used on your QNAP account. That kind of. But one of them actually can be executed remotely without authentication and is marked as low complexity. So all the things you don't want to hear. Now, NAS, if you aren't familiar with it, is a mechanism where people store a lot of things. So this is where you put your big stuff. You store all your backups. You store all that kind of stuff. I store backups on a NAS, but I also then push them into the cloud so that they're double backed up. But people put large data sets on there. I have videos on those and all that kind of stuff. And typically, if it's a NAS, it has its own IP address. So, okay, well, so there's instructions in the article for how to run the updates on your QNAP devices. But, one other thing you really should do is scan your edge often, even at home, because you really want to see if you have outward-facing ports that can be seen. And what a lot of people did with their NASs, is they opened these ports. And I'm always surprised when somebody opens these devices to the internet, but then I read their material and they set it up so you can do that. And you can access your files from anywhere. Working in a hotel in Singapore, access your NAS to back up your laptop. Well, I don't disagree with that you need to back up. But the problem is when you open those ports to the internet and you don't protect them, people can see them. And these devices are really popular targets. Since if Gary from HR backs up all those files to their home NAS from that place that sells tacos over on 4th Street, yeah, you know that. Well, then all those files are very nice things to steal. And so people start targeting them. So you might want to advise your people not to do this or do it over a VPN, but don't let them open ports on their NASs at home, and don't let them take company files and put them off site because they may well get compromised. Yeah. Medici curate ipsum is an old proverb in Latin that means, what have the Romans done for us lately? No, actually it means, physician, heal thyself. And now I always think of it when somebody manages to break into one of my web servers and, puts up something like, Doug, you're an idiot. I'm like, oh boy, you accomplished a lot today. Tell me something I don't know. But in this case, it was the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, as we all know it. Now, they have security in their name twice because they mean it. But nobody should be too secure in their own security. So apparently last month, CISA got breached via problems in, wait for it, Ivanti, another old pal of ours that makes the headlines all the time. Now, Ivanti makes web appliances and VPN appliances, and they've basically been under attack for as long as I've been doing this show. I mean, some of the first stories we ever did on the news when I took it over was about Ivanti. Well, this latest round is based on 5 vulnerabilities that have been patched that are linked to Connect Secure, Policy Secure, and Neurons for Zero Trust Access products. It's really bad when your Zero Trust Access product has a flaw in it. I mean, that's like one of those, like military intelligence oxymorons, like zero trust flaw. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's why we need zero trust. But CISA confirmed that 2 of its systems they confirmed 2 of their systems had been taken offline. But Checkpoint was talking about that those systems were actually breached by a threat group that they named Magnet Goblin. Good name. I like it. Band name called it. But this record was the record, which is actually a blog, was the first site that actually reported that this was a breach. And the record said that CISA had to take these systems offline, and they said the systems were breached and that they were the infrastructure protection gateway and the chemical security assessment tool. That sounds bad. I don't know what a chemical security assessment tool is, but it sure sounds like something you wouldn't want to have breached. But, that's just me. CISA has declined to confirm or deny whether these systems were taken down due to the breach, but they did acknowledge they were taken down. And my point here is not to shame CISA. It really isn't. I know I made it kind of sound that way, but I'm really not shaming CISA. But it's really to remind us all that we are all vulnerable, that we all have devices that may or may not have vulnerabilities in them, and we probably have things we need to patch right now that we haven't gotten around to. It's on the list of things that need to be patched, and yeah, that kind of stuff. So, Medici curate ipsum, indeed. Microsoft said that a Russian state-sponsored threat actor they call Midnight Blizzard, I'm like, okay, they also call them Nobelium, and we all know them as Cozy Bear, and they have like 73 different other names that different people have given them. But Midnight Blizzard's pretty good. I kind of like that one. But Microsoft said that Cozy Bear essentially accessed internal source code repositories and internal systems. That sounds bad. Now, if you don't recall, Cozy Bear has been around a long time, and they've also attacked the Democratic National Committee and various other things in the United States. Basically, they've attacked if you haven't been attacked by Cozy Bear or whatever their latest, nom de plume is, you probably aren't anybody. We've all been targeted by Cozy Bear. Come on. I have a sign out in front of my house that says, Cozy Bear, welcome. Come on. Make me famous, please. No, actually not. But Microsoft said that the attacks had increased as much as 10 times in February after they already had large increase in attacks in January. Microsoft said, quote, Midnight Blizzard's ongoing attack is characterized by a sustained, significant commitment of the threat actors' resources, coordination, and focus. It may be using the information it has obtained to accumulate a picture of areas to attack and to enhance its ability to do so. This reflects what has become a more broadly unprecedented global threat landscape, especially in terms of sophisticated nation-state attacks. Boy, that was some corporate speak. But everybody knows Cozy Bear is being run by, the Russian government. Partner Labs then said that there's an increasing trend of targeting source code and dev infrastructure, and the supply chain in general is something they have been warning about for a while. We all have. Wouldn't you like to have Microsoft source code? If you got that, guess what? It's a lot easier to find vulnerabilities. If you've got all those sources, you can find all the flaws. So supply chain is going to be targeted so badly in the next 10 years. It just is. In that same light, Japan issued a statement that said Lazarus Group, another one of our old buddies, and they're an infamous North Korean hacking team, and they said Lazarus had recently waged a supply chain attack which targeted the PyPI software repository. Now, PyPI, if you're not familiar, is a repository for Python applications. So people write stuff, they put it in PyPI. Lazarus was uploading packages with names like PyCryptoEnv and PyCryptoConf, which are very, very similar to the very legit PyCrypto toolkit for Python that we've all probably used at some point in time. Now, this is another one of those typo squatting attacks that we've seen many, many times in these online repositories, whether it's GitLab or GitHub or PyPI or et cetera. And of course, PyPI has been targeted a lot. PyCrypto is very useful, but if you grab the wrong thing, PyCrypta, you get bug spray instead of throat spray, right? You grab the wrong bottle when you're running on stage, and it's just like, oh, I think I just sprayed my mouth with Raid, and I'm like, why were you spraying your mouth anyway? But Raid, what does it taste like? It tastes like sadness and death. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you want to spit that out. But this particular attack, if you download those things, infects Windows machines with a Trojan called Comebacker. And the packages have been downloaded 300 to 1,200 times, depending on who you ask. But that was what Japan CERT said, was 300 to 1,200. I guess they couldn't narrow it down. But Comebacker is a general-purpose Trojan that is often used to drop ransomware, stealing credentials, infiltrating software, dev environment pipelines, whatever you want it to do. It's a Trojan. You can log in and do whatever you want. A report from Sonatype in 2023 said that 245,000 of these type of typo squatting packages were found in 2023, which was more than twice the number that had been found in the entirety from 2019 to 2022. So in all those years, they didn't have half this much. And now that's just where they're going. Now, stopping this and protecting yourself and your developers is tough, because your developer says, ooh, look, I need a crypto app. I'll download it from PyPI. And they grab the wrong one. So, the point of this article, and my point is, you need to figure out how you're going to vet these open source packages, because your developers are going to grab open source packages to use in things they're developing. So how do you vet them? What's the process? And how are you going to ensure that you're downloading random and not downloading rando? Because, that would be bad. You really need some policy controls around these repositories, and you need to enforce them and test them, because you're going to get got. It's so easy, because downloading is something we all do. I catch myself doing it all the time. I'm like, how could I do this? Oh, there's a cool, it's a problem, and it's a huge threat surface. So please start thinking about that. And speaking of Russian nation-state attacks, Several French government websites have been disrupted by a massive distributed denial of service. A statement from the Prime Minister's office acknowledged that some sites were in trouble, as they put it, as of Sunday night, and said that attacks of unprecedented intensity, it sounds better in French, attacks of unprecedented intensity were being conducted. The attack was detected, it was so big that it was detected by Cloudflare radar service, and they said that the attacks started early Sunday morning and escalated rapidly and then backed off a little and then had a massive resurgence to push on the attack for about 6 hours. Now, Anonymous Sudan claimed responsibility. And Anonymous Sudan said on their site that the Direction Interministerielle du Numérique, or DINUM, had ineffectual defenses and so forth, just the usual stuff. But Cloudflare said that Layer 7 attacks continued on Monday and today, and Falcon Feed said that Anonymous Sudan did not act alone. There were more people in that book repository than anybody thought, and there might have been somebody across the street. It's hard to say. Maybe there were some chemtrails, but they said Anonymous Sudan did not act alone, but were being backed by a pro-Russian attacker called UserSec and a threat group named 22C. I don't know what that means. Is it apartment number? I knew somebody who lived in 22C. I don't know. Maybe it's a shirt size. Beats me. But there is no known motive at this point, but speculation included that President Macron had recently suggested sending French troops to assist the Ukraine to repel the illegal invasion by Russia. I don't know. Now, I probably talked about this before, and I remember a show where we were talking about cameras being found in rentals. It might have actually been on Secure Digital Life. It was a long time ago. But I actually have a scanner that we used on that show, and I have a newer one too. And the scanner might be able to spot cameras if they're on RF, so if they're using Wi-Fi or something like that, because it detects Wi-Fi signals, and you just walk down the place, and it starts lighting up if you see a radio frequency signal. So you can, find where the router's hidden. You can also find, there's a camera in the bathroom. Because stuff like that happens. Well, Airbnb and VRBO, two very popular vacational rental sites, seem to have banded together on this, and they have now, as of April 30th, banned cameras in public areas. They had banned cameras in private areas in rentals previously, but they still allowed them in what they call common areas inside. I don't know what that means, and it wasn't clear. I went and looked at it, but it's not clear what they mean by a common area. Is that like a room with a fold-out couch bed or a futon, or is it like only in a bathroom? I don't know. So is there one in the kitchen? But anyway, whatever it means, as of 30 April, Airbnb and VRBO announced they will no longer allow cameras, even if they are turned off inside properties that are being sublet. Now, this includes, quote, any device that records or transmits video, images, or audio, including baby monitors, doorbell cameras, or any other type of camera. Airbnb will also require that there is a noise decibel monitor on the premises. They said they would allow those monitors, but only ones that did not transmit sounds or conversations. And even then, it could only be in the common space of the listing. Again, an undefined term. It's good to see they're cleaning some of this up. I mean, I always advise people to have a scanner and to take a really harsh look around any rental that they're in to make sure there's not any peephole cams. And of course, those people aren't going to follow the rules anyway. And rules aren't going to stop pervos from putting up these kind of things in bathrooms and what have you. But at least they're starting to limit what hosts can legally do in your rental. Because I was in a rental that had a camera in the living room. And I was like, I went over and unplugged it. And the guy came by and said, you unplugged the security camera. And I said, I don't really want you watching and listening to me. And I don't know you're watching and listening to me. I'm going to unplug it. And he was like, no, you can't do that. And I said, oh, well, I accidentally stepped on it with a ball bat. What a shame. I guess you'll have to buy a new one. But anyway, always check your bathrooms and rentals. Always check all the other areas to see if you see any cams. And remember, they can be really, really small. They make them where they fit in like a nail hole. They make them where they fit in ceiling. They're really, really teeny. So a cheap scanner may help. I wouldn't trust that even though they put these rules in place, it's going to stop real problems anyway. Well, my next guest is, I don't even know how to introduce him. He's so amazing. We're so lucky to have him. I just gushed when they told me he might come on the show. You wouldn't believe the stuff we had to do. You would not believe the rider he has. I mean, having to have fresh rose petals scattered in the bathroom and a rubber ducky floating in the toilet bowl before he can come in the studio is it's worth it to have him. Welcome, Josh Marpet.
Doug, I have to admit, my wife was a little creeped out when you brought those rose petals over, okay? So, like,
I never
just
go anywhere
saying.
without them. Just tell her. I always have them because I never know who I'm
All
going to
right.
gush over. Paul invited me over for a swim party. I was scattering rose petals in front of him when he was walking in, and yeah.
Yeah. He thought the we're not going to get into that. I don't think it's viable on any kind of media to talk about what you did and what you paid him to do. But anyway, and I want to say, in terms of the surveillance cameras, that I'm annoyed. I go out of my way to find those places because I figure as soon as they see me naked, they're going to shut those things off or self-combust. So I consider it a public service, but whatever. Okay, no big deal. So,
Aaron and I were trying to find ones where we could put on a show. So, and then we realized OnlyFans was out there, and it was never a problem ever since. So,
you and Aaron OnlyFans? Oh wow. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to leave that one alone.
The show is called "Will This Fit There?" So yeah, just you can take that for what it's worth.
I saw a story. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Drea De Matteo from The Sopranos.
Uh-huh.
She was broke because she left the show early, and they took her pay away, and she was literally about to be foreclosed on. She opened up her OnlyFans and paid off her mortgage in like 10 minutes. So hey,
whatever works.
You never know. It could work for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was talking to this person one time who was a stripper, and she was the girlfriend of this guy I worked for, and I always took her dinner every night because he lived in the other direction. I'd drop it off at like 3 a.m. at the strip club and get her dinner. And, I was kind of being that, what a shame. She was like, oh, I make $700 cash every night. And she was like, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be working at Wendy's going, would you like fries with that? She said, I don't really like the job, but she said, I have control. Nobody can touch me. And I make $700 a night. And I was like, is there a sign-up sheet, or like how do you get on board with this? Because I'm making minimum wage right now. Maybe this is what you're going to get, but I mean, there's takes all kinds, right?
Hey, if they throw $10 on the stage, you're like, I'm good.
And she was like, head upstairs. They got a whole thing up there for guys. I was like, oh yeah, I think I'll pass on that one. But okay, whatever.
Hey, whatever works. I have no shame on sex workers. They do
no,
amazing
absolutely.
stuff.
They have a tough job, and I wouldn't want it. And hey, if you can handle it, whatever. But yeah.
Amen. But anyway, let's get back to technology just for a second. I know you don't want to talk about that stuff. Just for a second, let's talk about technology. So I actually found this really cool little site called Malpulse, and I haven't gone too deep into it. I haven't really dug that deep into it, but it's fascinating because it's kind of threat intelligence from a different perspective. So it looks at all of the different CNC servers that are out there, the CNC infrastructure monitoring, and it categorizes them, and it actually lists them out for you. So if you think of like Virus Total, or is it ThreatFox? Well, I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. They will tell you, hey, this is bad, and we've seen it before. Great. Well, what this does is it tells you where they've seen it before. So in a sense, it's kind of open source threat intelligence with the IOCs, with all the different things in there. And is that actually useful? Fascinating. It's just for research purposes. It's fascinating. Why? Well, for example, I know Raf Mudge. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but we were extremely friendly and lovely guy. And he's the one that built Cobalt Strike, right? And I knew Cobalt Strike had been cracked, and I knew Cobalt Strike had been was being used in a malicious manner by various people, but I had no idea it was this widespread. Oh dear Lord! If you click on Cobalt Strike, because when you open up Malpulse, it shows you all the IP addresses and ports that things are coming in on, and it says this server at 45.15. blah 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 is a red line command and control server, right? So you can click on that server and you can see what's running out of there and all the details about it. And it links to Virus Total, and it links to, it is ThreatFox and other places like that. But if you click on the actual malware, like Cobalt Strike in this case, and Cobalt Strike Beacon, and it gives you the hashes and the service names and things, it gives you all of the things you need to know, which is really, really cool, let's be honest. It's incredibly useful for just getting clear pieces of information. You can stick in filters, you can stick in firewalls, you can put in places, right? Especially if they fit, right? Okay. So, but the amount of servers running Cobalt Strike for command and control, it's not 10, it's not 20, it's not 100. It's probably like a few thousand. Okay. It is absolutely unbelievable. Well, a few hundred at least. And they tell you, by the way, they tell you how they found it. Shodan, Census, and FOFA, FOFA. I never know how to pronounce it, sorry. But it's really cool that you can have almost a research search engine for different malware, different command and control servers, where they are, what they're doing, how they're doing it, what signs and signals and IOCs there are. And I just found that fascinating. I think it's interesting that we're starting to see research on malware become more widespread and academic. It's not just, hey, this happened. That's threat intelligence, right? This happened to Jimmy down the road. You should watch out for what happened to Jimmy, because that's your typical threat intelligence. It's, hey, these are the things we're seeing on an ongoing basis. They are laid out. They are organized. You can do research on them. If you'll remember, I don't know, were you there when we interviewed Sergey Bratis on Pulse Security Weekly like 3-4 weeks ago? We talked to him, and he actually said there is a language of malware. Malware authors, I should say, are going to be writing out malware in such a way that it is not, we found a vulnerability and we're writing custom code to fix or to work with that vulnerability. They're going to write things for when vulnerabilities show up, because they will predict where the vulnerabilities will be in implementation, in configuration, in code, and whatever. And whatever actually shows up, they'll already be ready. They're aiming at if you think about a grand unified field theory or grand unified malware theory, that's what malware authors are aiming at. And Sergey believes, and he's a smart guy, I kind of believe him, that we are very, very close to effectively what I called it the grand unified malware theory, where you can predict malware, where you can write code that will take advantage of malware wherever it is in the software. And you don't have to write bespoke code for a vuln that you find, okay? This is going to be a huge difference in the proliferation of malware. Rather than, oh, look, we found a vulnerability 3 days later, a week later, 5 weeks later, whatever. Now there's exploit code, then there's exploit code in the wild, then there's people getting exploited. It's going to be, we found a vulnerability and there's already exploit code for it. That's going to change what we think of vulnerabilities and vulnerability management. And by the way, there was a great article that just came out about how NVD, the National Vulnerability Database, is dying because they're taking the interval between a vulnerability being registered or put into the system and a CVSS score coming out of the system. They're slowing down massively, and I don't think it's because they're getting that many more vulnerabilities. It's because they don't know what to do anymore, and they're not sure how to do it. They don't have the funding, et cetera. So what's going to take over for the NVD? This is going to be interesting, okay? And realistically, we're going to have to start doing in the field, in the trenches, if you will, we're going to have to start doing some of this research ourselves. And databases and research areas like MalPulse, like others that are going to come out, VirusTotal has been doing it forever. Kudos to VirusTotal. But how many people's careers have been made on research using the VirusTotal data? Let's be honest. But between VirusTotal and MalPulse and other things like that, we're going to have to start seeing how fast things move, how fast vulnerabilities appear, and then how fast code appears to exploit that, and how fast exploitation happens. And my prediction, and I hope I'm wrong, is that those intervals between vulnerability appearing and exploitation happening are going to go down to, well, 0, damn close to it. And while I hope I'm wrong, I don't think I am. It's going to be an interesting next few years, let's put it that way. So, see what happens. Back to you, Doug.
I like the idea that as you've seen academic programs start to grow around malware, that you're seeing a lot more basic research and applied research coming out of universities and things. And that, I mean, that's just a total, sea change since, like, when I was in school in the 90s or the 80s or whatever, and there was no such thing. And even, talking about it was forbidden and all this kind of stuff, and people did it. But now you're seeing people that actually have advanced degrees that are, at universities studying malware. And that is going to change how malware works. But I like what you said about the malware framework, because I think having a malware framework is going to be somebody's dissertation. And it's also going to mean that people will be able to develop. It's good and bad. I mean, it means you got an analytical framework that may be automated, but it also means people can rapidly develop malware. because there's probably going to be a book called How to Write Malware, that comes out. And, it's like, just like those old books that came out called, How to Hack, or The Happy Hacker's Guide to Mostly Harmless Hacking, or whatever. When those things come out, there's going to be a period of time when many, many, many people get involved in doing bad things, with that information, but we can't stop that. So thank you, Josh. And finally, I'm just going to reiterate this, because since the dawn of the BBS dial-up, the 300 baud BBS dial-up that I used to run, people have been creating bait files that people downloaded and click on that don't contain an exciting text-based Star Trek game, but rather a little tool that slowly fills all your memory so your machine is really slow and then wipes itself and starts over again, just for fun. But I only bring this up because your employees keep falling for this stuff, and they're going to keep falling for it, and it's going to keep working, because it's really hard to stop. Well, the latest of these kind of things, and it's a big deal, is Sydney Sweeney. Now, if you don't know who Sydney Sweeney is, you've probably seen her. She's been on a whole bunch of shows. She's a celebrity. She's an actress, whatever. She was in White Orchid. She hosted Saturday Night Live recently and so forth. Well, after that Saturday Night Live appearance, there was a trend on X where it says Sydney Sweeney leak. And if you don't know what that means, it implies that someone hacked somebody's phone and got, nude photos of them or whatever. And we've seen these down through history. But the link promises the usual, oh my God moment that you get to see someone naked that you already saw naked on that show. And then they hosted SNL. I mean, I'm sorry, but we've been here before. But I got to meet Harvey Keitel once, and I kept thinking the whole time I was talking to him, I've seen this man naked more than any other man I could name. And here I am talking to him in person, but I still didn't click a link about it. But look, a lot of people, right or wrong, a lot of people want to see celebrities naked. I don't know really where that comes from, but they do. And that's always going to be exploited. And they're not going to come down and ask and say, I was going to look at these nude photos of Jennifer Lawrence, but you think that might be a scam? They're not going to do that. And if it just hurt them, I guess that would be one thing. But that phone that they're using to look at Dom DeLuise naked, it's connected to your Wi-Fi, and the router is connected to the backbone, and the backbone's connected to the QNAP bone. And and that's how them bones, that kind of thing. Yeah, anyway, so please think about policy on this, and please remind them about it. Please, okay? And that's the news. Thank you, Josh, and I will see you Friday on the Security Weekly News.